Welcome to Agri-Pulse Newsmakers, where we aim to take you to the heart of ag policy. I'm your host, Lydia Johnson. This week, we're bringing you a special edition of the show for Commodity Classic. Over 10,000 producers and ag industry leaders gathered in San Antonio, Texas, for policy meetings, educational sessions, and to see the latest new technology. Attendees also had the opportunity to hear from USDA leaders, including Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins. To begin the show, I asked Amy France, a Kansas farmer and chairwoman of the National Sorghum Producers, about what sentiment she's hearing from producers at the show.
It's just a really good time to come together. I think I've mentioned before that it feels like a family reunion of the agriculture families and commodity groups. So that's really what we're focused on. Gives us a chance to hear what other producers are going through. And, nobody just grows one crop on their farm. So listening to that, top priority for sorghum continues to be, trade. E15, we need to get a farm bill done. There's a lot of the same things that we've been talking about that we really need to get across the finish line.
And you mentioned trade. During a majority of your tenure as chairwoman of National Sorghum Producers, trade has really dominated the headlines. So, I'm curious, where has sorghum seen the biggest impacts from tariffs since President Trump took office?
Sure. Well, what we have seen is, this time last year was a struggle. We were trying to figure out what was going on, but we knew in the past, history tends to repeat itself, and we knew we would end up okay. We're still trying to put that all back together, but where we are today, China is back in the market for sorghum, which is our #1 export market. And as of today, year to date, we're 3 times where we were last year. So that's huge and something we knew could happen. We just needed the green light. And then I can't help but talk about India. Again, we had talked about that last year and about just returning from India and their need for feed, animal feed, and how sorghum, non-GMO, could fit that task. And so we have now had this historic India-U.S. agreement take place. Don't have vessels on the water yet hauling that red sorghum over, but we're celebrating those steps to make that progress.
Yeah, you mentioned the India deal coming to fruition, but you were actually there last year. So I'm very curious, being boots on the ground in the country, what kind of opportunities you saw and, the opportunity of them as a bigger trading partner as we look to the future.
Yeah, I think the key is the relationships that have been built not only by National Sorghum, but our Checkoff and our Grains Council. Together, we've gone into India saying, how can we help? We want to support their farmers as well. They have a huge task in front of them to feed their population. And so the uptick in poultry production is where sorghum really fits.
Yeah. And we've seen all kinds of trade deals and frameworks emerging, a few that you mentioned, but are the provisions that we've seen so far, I guess, from your farmer perspective, worth the pain from the tariffs that we've seen in the short term?
Well, there has been difficulty, and we're thankful for the bridge payment to get us through some of these times. So we're having to focus on that. And one thing about sorghum producers and farmers in general, we're used to some struggles along the way, and we look forward to the next thing. And so that's what we've really been able to focus on. Again, oftentimes history repeats itself. So we continue to focus on what has been taking place. And there's been a lot of trade. As you said, we've got China back in, India perspective, new markets like Malaysia, not to mention, Mexico and Spain. So we have some good partnerships that we can rely on. And that's really what we're focused on, is making sure we continue that forward momentum.
And another issue is the House Ag Committee's farm bill that will be debated very soon, but it includes a provision permanently moving the Food for Peace program to administration under USDA. So I'm curious, just to begin, what the Food for Peace program, the value of that for sorghum producers and why that move is so important.
Well, strong Kansas connection, and we're Kansas farmers, so always glad to claim that. What that does is just give us stability, moving that back to USDA. Food for Peace is big for sorghum. 3 to 8% of our export goes for that. And another big piece that we're really excited to see emphasized and we're focused on is the American grown commodity. That's big. Nobody does it better. And so ensuring that that's what's going over to help feed these other countries when we have excess is really important. So we're celebrating that. We can't wait to get that, permanently moved over. But in the meantime, we're also praising the work that's being done.
And Amy, you'll meet with Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins, get the opportunity to hear from her and connect with her here at the trade show. As a farmer yourself, representing growers all across the country, what's going to be your message to her here at the show?
Let us be your resource. We're grateful for the work she's been doing and listening to the farmers. And so that's really key for us, is to make sure that we are a reliable resource for her. Thank you for getting that Food for Peace over to USDA. Thank you for the bridge payments. How can we help you next? in whatever's coming down the pike. And for us, truly, our momentum is also joining forces in E15. Now is the time. So those are some of the messages I plan to relay.
We'll be back with more newsmakers right after this.
As a cooperative, our customers are our owners. They share our profits and help guide our business. We're not just another lender. We're Farm Credit, and we're here for you.
I think some of sustainability to farmers just comes second nature. If you asked a farmer, are you sustainable? They'd probably look at you maybe a little funny and say, I don't think I'm doing anything that special, but it really is just what they do. We're all farmers, and our goal is taking the best care of our land, our cattle, our natural resources.
This is my sustainability story.
Welcome back. The Environmental Protection Agency sent its proposed final biofuel blending rules to the White House. We asked Devin Mogler, the president and CEO of the National Oilseed Processors Association, for an update.
We're really excited to see the EPA send the strongest, most pro-U.S. farmer RVOs over to the White House for final review. We're hoping that it can get turned around within a few weeks. They've indicated that they can get it done in Q1, which would be the end of March. That's important to make sure that the compliance deadline doesn't slip any further. So we'll be looking for three main things when they do release this. It's the top line volumes. They proposed some of the most historic, highest volumes ever in the history of this program, an implied 5.61 billion gallons for biomass-based diesel, which is a step change from where we were for 2025, which was 3.35 billion gallons. We'll also be looking at how they handle the reallocation of the small refinery exemptions for 23 through 25. In their supplemental rule, they proposed either 50% or 100%, or possibly somewhere in between. And then the third piece is how they handle the reduced RIN credit for imported waste feedstocks and other feedstocks, as well as imported finished biofuels. So those are the three top line things we'll be looking for when they finalize it, hopefully within the next few weeks.
Yeah, and a lot at play there, but kind of take us back to the basics. You represent the oil processors, but what's the importance of this policy for farmers?
Yeah, so the RVOs is the most important thing for soybean processing because we've expanded processing capacity by over 25% over the past few years. We've invested over $6 billion, and that's all been driven by biofuels policy. Oil is only 20% of the soybean, but it represents half of the value of that soybean. Half of that oil goes into the food supply, but half, and an increasing share, is going into biofuels. And that's driven by a couple of things: some low carbon fuel standard programs on the West Coast, federal tax credits like 45Z, which was improved during the One Big Beautiful Bill. But the biggest and most important piece of that credit stack is the RVO. So that's why we've been so focused on this. And I think a lot of farmers I've been talking to here at Classic understand how important biofuels policy is right now. It always has been on the corn side, but increasingly on the soybean side of things, it's really what's driving the bus.
Yeah, and you mentioned this maybe being one of the most ag-friendly versions of the RVOs so far. I mean, there's obviously been a lack of demand for soybeans considering the president's trade policy the last year. Do you think that has anything to do, obviously to be a benefit, but the administration really recognized that to boost those?
Yeah, I think it was just a year ago at Commodity Classic when President Trump put out a post on social media saying we're going to create more demand for our great farmers' products right here at home while he works through some of the trade renegotiations. Historically, we would export 2 out of every 5 rows of soybeans to China. Now that's closer to 1 out of every 5. But domestic crushing has picked up the slack there. We're now processing over 60% of all U.S. soybeans right here at home. So we're creating more soybean meal for our poultry producers, for our swine producers, for dairy. So that's a benefit, helping keep those prices low at the grocery store. And then also providing that oil, the vegetable oil that goes into our food supply, as well as for biofuels.
We'll be back with more from Commodity Classic right after this.
I've worked at Coca-Cola for 21 years.
We're delivering Dr. Pepper from our brand new facility in Dallas, Texas.
We're really proud to still make Pepsi products in America.
You don't need a college degree to work here, but I put 4 kids through college by working here.
This is a great place to work with great people and great American brands.
Grocery stores, convenience stores, restaurants, they all depend on us.
We deliver great paying jobs.
We deliver beverages people love.
We deliver for our community.
I was kind of known as the sheep guy around here. The fire went from north to south and it blew that way and it went straight down the house. Lost all of our sheep literally a week before we were to start lambing. And I was really in a bad place. I happened to notice this farm state of mind piece of paper. And I picked up my cell phone and I made a phone call, and that was the best phone call in my life. I'm glad that I'm still here. So don't do something permanent over a temporary situation.
Welcome back. Jamie Kress is the new president of the National Association of Wheat Growers. We asked her to share more about her background and farm.
I'm Jamie Kress. I'm the new president of the National Association of Wheat Growers. My husband Corey and I farm in southeast Idaho. We have about 7,500 acres where we grow wheat, safflower, canola. We grow pulses like dried peas, garbanzo beans, and we have kind of a unique environment. We farm about 5,000 to 6,200 feet in elevation, so it's pretty high. And then we also have about 12 to 16 inches of rain annually. So definitely a dry land environment. It's a fun place to farm. We love what we do. Our family's been there for over 100 years. We have 2 kids. One of them is in college in Utah studying mechanical engineering, and our daughter is actually headed to Utah as well next fall. So happy farm family, loving what we do, being wheat farmers, and happy to be here at Commodity Classic and excited to serve the farmers in our organization at the National Association and also represent the farmers around the country.
Oh, wonderful, Jamie. We're excited to have you here. And as you're beginning your tenure as president, I'm curious what some of your goals are in that leadership role, and what policies in particular you're most looking forward to advocating for in Washington.
Of course. So we're excited. I think ultimately the thing I'm most excited about right now in serving in wheat and in ag broadly is we have a fantastic group of farmers on our board of directors right now. Great engagement from our states, and there's a lot of energy and momentum among the board to move ag forward and ag policy, and to really continue the energy that we have in agriculture with technology and innovation and bringing our businesses into this modern environment. And so it's fun to work with our board, and we're really excited about that. We had a lot of great wins last summer in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And as you're aware, and many of your listeners, we were able to have a lot of the Farm Bill priorities included in that policy, which was very helpful. Our farmers are really appreciative of having, increased reference prices and opportunities to add or update base acres, and the safety net provisions, the insurance. There's a lot of great things for us, but there were a few things because of those Senate rules that we couldn't address. One of them is moving the Food for Peace to USDA. So there's a comprehensive agreement right now that's allowing USDA to operate the Food for Peace program. But we need to have that codified and ensure that that's a permanent home for Food for Peace. We're also keeping an eye on the credit title. There's some expansion and some improvements there that will make a significant difference. Right now, in agriculture, as you know, there's some difficulty out there in the countryside. We're dealing with tough economic conditions, and so the time right now is of urgency. It's to address those needs in the credit title and ensure, especially that USDA FSA has some expanded opportunities and funds and ways to get more credit opportunities out to our farmers in the countryside.
And the Farm Bill, lots of very important provisions in there. Outside of that, we've been following throughout the last year plus a lot of this trade and tariff policy as well. So I'm curious, as a grower, how that's been affecting you, and if all this uncertainty is really worth it, if you're beginning to see any of the benefits from the president's policies so far.
Well, the association always appreciates efforts to improve trade policy. That is an ongoing conversation, and that always matters to farmers like myself. So over 50% of the wheat in the United States is exported. So it's very significant and important to our organization that we have robust and solid trade policy to ensure that we continue to get our products across the globe. The most difficult thing that I think farmers have dealt with in terms of tariffs is the increased cost of inputs. we've seen some of our parts and machinery increase substantially in and some of our other farm supplies in terms of their cost getting them to us out on the farm in regards to the tariffs. So that's been difficult, I think, for the wheat farmer to absorb some of those costs.
We'll be back with more Newsmakers right after the break.
I think some of sustainability to farmers just comes second nature. If you asked a farmer, are you sustainable? They'd probably look at you maybe a little funny and say, I don't think I'm doing anything that special, but it really is just what they do. We're all farmers, and our goal is taking the best care of our land, our cattle, our natural resources.
This is my sustainability story.
America never stops. Thanks to the financial support of Farm Credit, neither do the farmers and ranchers who call her home. Since the beginning, we've been helping rural America show the world what hard work can achieve. But the job is far from over. And as rural America grows further, we'll be there.
Welcome back. Kurt Coffey is Vice President of Case IH North America and Vice Chair at the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. We asked him what he's hearing from equipment manufacturers at Commodity Classic this week.
Sentiment, I would say, is somewhat subdued. We're, in a cycle where net farm income is challenged. Having said that, though, there are a lot of clients and customers across this whole show that seem optimistic where possibly there's an opportunity to invest in a new technology or some sort of new piece of equipment that can improve their ROI. So while we are in a time where net farm income, I would say, is a little difficult, moods here are generally okay to upbeat here in 2026 at the Commodity Classic.
Wonderful. And one of the biggest topics, I guess, from the last year has been tariffs. And last week, the Supreme Court overturned President Trump's use of IEEPA to impose tariffs and then imposed some global tariffs. So I guess from your perspective on the equipment sector, how do these tariffs affect the equipment sector? I mean, lots of steel and aluminum being used to make those products. And, what does this uncertainty do to the business from the equipment manufacturer sector?
And the word you used towards the end of the question, uncertainty, is exactly how I would answer the question. Yes, there were some changes Friday, and we're looking at 10% reciprocal across the board again. Standing here representing the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, I can tell you that our goal and the member group would like to be able to operate with stability and clarity. So we've been managing through a lot of change. I think the member companies have been focused to make sure we optimize the return of the investment of the customer. But we really need to have stability and clarity as we go forward because we're large businesses. We have to plan our costs. We have to plan our materials. It takes time to industrialize platforms in different factories. And so we need stability, we need clarity, and that's what our members at the AEM group are asking for.
Yeah, and farmers are set to receive Farmer Bridge Assistance Program payments this spring that might have a little bit more cash in their pockets. But as you look to 2026, what do you expect equipment demand to look like?
So the first point, the farmer assistance, the bridge, I actually am a farmer. I filled out my paperwork 2 days ago, so thank you to USDA. Talking to some of my personal friends that farm, this is not something that's going to take them over the top, but maybe they were struggling, they were a little bit in the red. This truly is a bridge. So this keeps farmers going into 26. There are some gives and takes, but the industry generally is looking at a similar year in 26 as 25. Maybe livestock's a little bit flat to up. Maybe the cash crop products are flat to a little bit off. But the mix, I would say generally 26 is set up to look a little bit like 2025.
Yeah. And as we look across the farm economy, it's a very challenging time for farmers. I'm curious, how is AEM supporting some of these producers, during this challenging time, but throughout the year, all year long?
Yeah, AEM does a very good job of getting the collective together and saying, how can we lean in and help rural America? That's the core of our economic engine here in North America. And so whether it's advocating for access to rural broadband, whether it's working with local schools to drive improved vocation, VOTEC, which could help our manufacturing plants, or our dealers with skilled labor, AEM is right there arm in arm with us as a collective, and it's very important, and they're doing very good work advocating for these needs for rural America.
We'll be back with more from Commodity Classic right after the break.
Don't miss the must-attend Ag Policy event of the year. Register now for the 2026 Agri-Pulse Ag and Food Policy Summit. Hear directly from the leaders shaping the future of agriculture as they explore innovative ideas to strengthen rural economies and guide policy decisions for the year ahead and beyond. The summit takes place March 23rd at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., with a virtual option available. View the agenda and register today at agripulse.com under the Events tab.
I was kind of known as the sheep guy around here. The fire went from north to south and it blew that way and it went straight down the house. Lost all of our sheep literally a week before we start lambing. And I was really in a bad place. I happened to notice this farm state of mind piece of paper. I picked up my cell phone and I made a phone call, and that was the best phone call in my life. I'm glad that I'm still here, so don't do something permanent over a temporary situation.
Welcome back. Ohio farmer Scott Metzger serves as president of the American Soybean Association. We asked him what the highlight of his time at Commodity Classic has been so far and what he's hearing from other soybean growers at the event.
You know, that's you get a renewed effort here when you're at the show. Everybody's, spirits get picked up a little bit, and you're listening in on some of the training sessions that are going on, and gives everybody a little bit of more optimism than what they had prior to coming here. So it's the energy's good here. It's been good so far.
Yeah, and the big news here at the show, the RVOs have been sent to the White House. Can you provide an update on that?
Yeah, so they were sent, and hopefully here towards the middle of March, we end up getting the announcement on it, and looking forward to them being up where they had originally announced that. That's going to be a key for the soybean producer, having good RVOs. We got 45Z put into place, the first part of it, and getting it finalized, and then get RVOs be the second part of it. So trying to get that domestic demand used up and get it boosted, so get some bushels used up.
Yeah, and this comes at a very important time, as we've seen a very challenging year in the trade space as well. I mean, what's the importance of finalizing these strong RVOs for soybean growers?
Yeah, that's the thing with the trade this year, with the lack of trade we've had with China. We're roughly about half of where we were normally at. So it's pretty critical that we get these RVOs in place and get the finalized 45Z. Just the times are tight on the farm, and any time we can spur some potential profitability domestically or internationally, either one, that's what we need to do.
Yeah. And last week, the Supreme Court overruled President Trump's use of IEPA to impose tariffs. I'm curious that soybean growers, reading your statement, you're actually calling for the president to not impose tariffs on ag inputs. Yes. Can you explain?
Yeah. So that was our opening statement that day with it, and I think it was the first interview I was in. That was when they announced that they were going to do the 10% on it. So we still don't want to see those on there. We would ask that, we're at 15% now, but we would ask that they, the fertilizer, dry fertilizer exempt, and would like to also have some of the inputs like chemicals and things like that get exempt from it, because that's when those tariffs get added on, that's just an extra expense that is a pass-through expense that gets to the American farmer. And we don't need any more of that.
Yeah, and we've seen this administration have a crackdown on fertilizer prices, looking to break up that monopoly is what they've said so far. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, from the farmer perspective, are you beginning to see any decline in those prices yet so far?
No, not yet. And that's we're the prices are as high as what they've been when we were at $6 corn and $13, $14 beans. So no, we haven't seen any reprieve in that yet. They're still astronomically high.
And we're seeing many of these trade deals and trade provisions emerging. I'm curious, on your perspective from a farmer, soybeans in particular have been a sore point for most of those. Are you seeing what we've seen so far in these tariffs and trade deals? Is it worth the pain from all these tariffs and uncertainties?
Well, we're obviously not a fan of the tariffs, but we have had some bilateral, some trade deals come out of it. One with Indonesia, with it as coming in. So there has been a little shining light in that. at the end of the day, we don't want the tariffs. We want to have free trade, want to have good trade deals with other countries. We want to have certainty for the American farmer that with the trade deals that, we're able to continue to do what we're doing.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Agri-Pulse Newsmakers. I'm Lydia Johnson. Thanks for watching.
Newsmakers is a production of Agri-Pulse Communications. You can also find our new content on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow Agri-Pulse and our correspondents on social media to get breaking news and more. For agriculture, trade, food, environment, and regulatory news, your source is agripulse.com.